It started the way most things do, quietly, almost like nothing at all. The school hallway buzzed with the usual noise. Sneakers squeaked against the linoleum floor. Lockers slammed shut in rhythm. People laughed too loud or whispered too low. But through all that I noticed him. I always noticed him. Evan, the team captain. The kind of guy who never had to say much to take over a room. He walked like he owned every hallway and spoke like nothing ever scared him. Meanwhile, I stuck to the walls, invisible unless I tripped over my own shoelaces or dropped my books in front of everyone. I wasn't part of his world, not really. He was football, leadership, popularity. I was art club, late-night video games, and headphones and during lunch. We had no reason to speak. No reason at all, except for that one unexpected day that changed everything. It started in the locker room, but it wasn't how it sounds. I wasn't supposed to be there. I had forgotten my sketchbook in the gym storage area after helping set up banners for the pep rally. I didn't think anyone was around. Practice had ended 30 minutes earlier. I figured I could slip in and out without being noticed. That was my first mistake. The door creaked when I pushed it open. The room was dim, shadows crawling over benches and lockers like they were hiding something. I moved fast, heart beating in that nervous way it does when you know you're somewhere you don't belong. I spotted my sketchbook wedged beside a folding chair and grabbed it quickly. That should have been the end. I should have left right then. But instead I heard it, footsteps. Heavy, steady, growing louder behind me. I froze. Then I turned around, and there he was. Evan. He didn't say anything at first. Just looked at me, eyes narrowing a little like he was trying to figure out if I was trespassing or just dumb. I couldn't breathe. Not just from fear, but from something else, panic mixed with something shameful, something electric. His shirt was off, towel around his neck, sweat still glistening on his skin like he'd just finished running 1,000 miles. My face got hot. I told myself it was embarrassment. He raised a brow. "You good?" His voice snapped me back to reality. Deep, relaxed, but with that edge he always carried. I nodded too fast. "Yeah, I left this earlier." I held up the sketchbook like it was a get-out-of-jail-free card. He walked closer. Slowly. My feet wouldn't move. I couldn't look away. He glanced at the sketchbook in my hand, then back at my face. "You draw?" I blinked. Yeah?" He smirked like he'd just discovered something amusing. "What kind of stuff?" My mouth opened, but no sound came out. I hadn't prepared for this conversation. Not with him. Not like this. He tilted his head. "Chill, man. Just a skin dot." His tone was casual, but I felt the weight behind it. Like he was studying me, peeling layers back without even trying. That was when I realized he wasn't angry. He wasn't telling me to leave. He was curious. Interested even. My heart pounded louder. "I draw people. Faces. Moments," I said, barely above a whisper. He nodded slowly. "Cool. You ever draw anyone from school?" The question caught me off guard. My fingers tightened around the sketchbook. Should I lie? Should I admit it? There were sketches of him in there. I knew it. I'd drawn him too many times. His profile during lunch, the way his hair curled at the back, the intensity in his eyes when he focused during a game. I'd never meant for anyone to see those. Especially not him. My silence gave me away. He took another step closer. "You did, didn't you?" His tone wasn't angry. It was soft. Something changed in his eyes. A flicker of understanding or curiosity or something else I couldn't name. I looked down. "Yeah. A few times. I expected him to laugh, to mock me, to walk out and tell the whole team. Instead, he said, "Can I see?" My head jerked up. "What?" He shrugged. "Your drawings. Of me. I want to see how you see me." My throat dried up. This had to be a joke. Or a trap. But something in his face told me it wasn't. It was genuine. I should have said no. But my hands moved before my brain caught up. I opened the sketchbook to one of the pages. A profile sketch of him mid-throw, drawn during a rainy game night. He stared at it, eyes unreadable. Then another page. Him smiling, caught in a candid moment I'd imagined but never seen. He kept staring. Not saying a word. The silence stretched out between us, thick with tension. Finally, he looked up. "You're really good," he said, voice low. I didn't know what to say. So I said nothing. He handed the book back. His fingers brushed mine, just barely, but it felt like a spark ran up my arm. "You ever draw someone like this before?" His voice was different now. Lower. Warmer. And there was something in his eyes that made my stomach flip. I swallowed hard. "Not really." He smiled, slow and dangerous. "Yes, I'm honored." He walked past me then, heading to his locker like it was nothing. Like that whole moment hadn't just shaken the foundation of my reality. But I stood there, frozen, breath caught in my throat, sketchbook clutched to my chest like it was a secret diary. That wasn't supposed to happen. None of that was supposed to happen. I'd come to grab a book. Instead, I walked out carrying something heavier, his attention. And maybe even a piece of something deeper. Something forbidden. Something I couldn't stop now, even if I wanted to. The next day felt like walking through a fog. Everything around me moved normally, bells ringing, students chatting, teachers calling roll, but inside, I wasn't even sure if I was awake or dreaming. I kept playing yesterday over in my head on a loop, like a movie I couldn't pause or turn off. Evan asking to see my sketchbook. Evan smiling like he knew something I didn't. Evan touching my fingers, barely but definitely, and acting like it wasn't anything. I didn't know what it meant. I didn't know if it was all in my head. But I felt different. Lighter and heavier at the same time. Nervous like I'd swallowed electricity, and it was zipping through every part of me. I tried to avoid him. I really did. I walked the long way around the science wing just to get to English class. I skipped my usual seat in the lunchroom and sat near the vending machines instead. I kept my eyes down in the hallway. Not that I ever made much eye contact with people to begin with. But no matter how hard I tried to stay invisible, something told me it wasn't going to work this time. I was right. Halfway through lunch, just when I thought I could breathe, I heard someone walking toward me. Not the aimless shuffling of students. Confident steps. Measured. Purposeful. My stomach dropped before I even looked up. Then his voice came, low and clear. "Didn't see you at your usual spot." I froze, the half-eaten sandwich in my hand suddenly dry and tasteless. I looked up slowly. Evan stood in front of me, tray in hand, like he belonged there. Like it was the most normal thing in the world to sit beside me. I blinked, confused, stunned. I just wasn't hungry," I mumbled. He raised an eyebrow. "Still eating, though." He sat down before I could tell him not to. He just plopped down beside me like we'd done this every day for the past year. His teammates glanced over from their table across the room, faces twisted in mild confusion. He didn't seem to care. He started eating, completely at ease, like this wasn't weird. But it was. It was so weird. I couldn't stop staring at my tray. My throat tightened. "Is there something you need?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. He looked at me out of the corner of his eye, chewing slowly. Nah. Just figured you might want to talk. My heart thudded. About what? He shrugged. Art. Life. Yesterday. He paused. Me. The word landed like a punch to my chest. I stared at him, lips parted, but no words came out. He looked right at me, calm and serious. You don't have to say anything. I'm not here to mess with you. His voice was gentle. Honest. That threw me off more than anything. Guys like him didn't talk like that to guys like me. They laughed with their friends, shoved each other in the halls, called us names under their breath when teachers weren't around. But Evan wasn't doing any of that. He was sitting with me. Talking. Like I was a person. More than that. Someone he wanted to know. I finally found my voice, though it trembled. Why are you doing this? He leaned back a little. Because I want to. I mean, maybe it's stupid, but I thought about your drawings all night. My eyes widened. Really? He nodded. They were different. You saw something in me that I didn't know people noticed. That hit something deep. Something raw and exposed. I wasn't used to being seen. Not really. Most people looked through me. Teachers knew my name, but barely remembered it. Classmates knew I existed but not who I was. But Evan was looking at me like I was a whole person. Like I mattered. My chest tightened. I wanted to believe him, but I didn't know how. Trust wasn't something I handed out easily. I didn't want this to be some joke that ended with laughter at my expense. But he wasn't laughing. Not even close. After a long pause, he spoke again. You ever draw someone the way you wish they were? The question caught me off guard. I blinked. What do you mean? He picked up a grape and rolled it between his fingers. Like not just how they look, but how you wish they'd look at you. Like if you could draw a version of them that saw you, understood you. That kind of thing. My hands went cold. I didn't know how he was doing it, peeling layers off me like he had the right. I swallowed hard. Yeah, I whispered. I do that. He didn't say anything for a second. Then he gave me a small, lopsided smile. That's what it felt like. When I looked at those drawings. Like I was looking at me, but through your eyes. He paused again, more serious now. And I liked it. I liked how you saw me. My breath caught in my throat. This couldn't be happening. Not him. Not like this. The bell rang, snapping the moment in half. Students started gathering their things. Evan stood up slowly, grabbing his tray. Walk with me. I hesitated, then nodded. We walked side by side down the hallway. No one said much. Just silence and footsteps and the occasional stare from someone who didn't understand why the captain of the football team was walking with the quiet art kid. I didn't care. Not in that moment. Not when he glanced at me like he wanted to say more but wasn't sure how. We stopped near my locker. I turned toward him. He looked down at his feet, then back at me. You got practice? I asked, trying to sound normal. He nodded. Yeah. But maybe after we could talk more? My heart jumped. Sure, I said, barely trusting my voice. That he smiled again. Not the cocky grin he gave to his teammates, but something softer. Then he turned and walked away, leaving me frozen in place. My fingers trembled as I reached into my locker, like I just survived something dangerous and intimate at the same time. I didn't know where this was going. I didn't know what he wanted or what I wanted. But for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen. And that was terrifying. Because once someone sees you, they can hurt you. And I wasn't sure I was ready for that. But it was already happening. And I couldn't stop it now. The air felt thicker than usual that evening. The kind of heaviness that pressed into your skin, into your chest, like it knew something was about to happen before you did. I sat in my room staring at the same page in my sketchbook for what felt like hours. I couldn't draw. Not the way I normally did. My hand shook every time I tried to outline his face again. That steady jawline, the curve of his lips when he smiled like he was keeping something from the world. I'd drawn Evan so many times before, but now it felt different. Realer. Like if I got a line wrong, I'd be misrepresenting something sacred. I closed the book and dropped it on my desk, then leaned back in my chair and stared at the ceiling. My heart had been a restless drumbeat all day, thumping every time I remembered the way he said, "I liked how you saw me." It echoed in my mind, soft and heavy, like a secret I wasn't sure I was supposed to carry. By the time the streetlights outside turned the road into a line of glowing dots, I knew I wouldn't be able to sleep without seeing him again. He said we'd talk after practice. That promise, though barely more than a suggestion, had nested in the back of my thoughts like a whisper. I didn't know if it meant anything to him. Maybe it was a throwaway line. Or maybe he meant it. Either way, I found myself pulling on a hoodie and sneaking out of the house with quiet steps. The school wasn't far. Just a 10-minute walk down dark sidewalks and past houses that had already shut their windows to the world. I kept my hands in my pockets, feeling the cold air bite my cheeks. I wasn't even sure what I would say if he was there. But something told me I needed to go. The football field lights were still on when I got close, casting long shadows across the grass. I slowed down, my heartbeat picking up. I wasn't supposed to be here again. And yet there I was, drawn in, not by curiosity, but by something deeper. Something like gravity. I crept along the fence until I saw them, his team, scattered and tired, most of them packing up their gear. Some were laughing, some shouting playful insults. But then I saw him. Evan. Still in uniform, pulling his jersey off, sweat-darkened shirt underneath. He moved like someone who knew exactly where his body ended and where power began. I ducked behind a bush, unsure why I was hiding. Maybe I was just scared. Or maybe I needed a second to breathe before I stepped into a world that didn't belong to me. And then, just as I was debating turning back, his head turned. His eyes scanned the fence. And then, somehow, he saw me. I froze. He didn't look surprised. Just calm. Like he expected me. Like he knew I'd be there. He tossed his bag to one of the players and started walking toward me. My feet stayed glued to the ground. He stopped on the other side of the fence, arms crossed loosely, a soft smile tugging at his lips. "You came," he said, voice quiet, like the night didn't need any louder sound. I nodded. "I wasn't sure if you meant it," I whispered. He leaned closer, gripping the top of the fence. "I meant it." He looked around, then jerked his head toward the far end of the field. "Come around. There's a gate." I did. Slowly, carefully, like every step might be the one that shattered whatever was holding this together. When I reached him, he was waiting alone, just a few feet from the edge of the track. He wasn't smiling anymore. Not because he was upset, but because there was something serious in his face now. "Let's walk," he said. So we did. In silence at first. The sound of our shoes brushing the ground was the only thing between us. The field lights made everything surreal, too bright in some places, too shadowed in others. I walked beside him, feeling every inch of space between us, and every bit of tension that filled it. He was the first to speak. "You know, I kept thinking about your drawings today. Like really thinking. I've never had anyone do that before. I glanced at him. Draw you? He nodded. No one ever looks at me that long, I think. Not like that. They see the uniform. The captain? The guy who throws the ball. They don't see me when I'm not performing. He paused, eyes distant. But your drawings? You saw something real. I didn't know what to say. My mouth opened, then closed. I didn't mean to make you uncomfortable, I said softly. He shook his head. You didn't. You did the opposite. I liked it. It was strange. But good. We stopped walking near the back bleachers, the area farthest from the building. He sat down on the lowest step and patted the space next to him. I hesitated only a second before sitting. We sat close enough to feel the warmth between us, but far enough that neither of us could pretend it was anything else. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees. Can I ask you something? He said, eyes fixed on the field. Yeah. When did you start noticing me? My breath caught. I didn't expect that. I don't know. A while ago. Maybe last year. You were always just there. Loud, confident. But then I started seeing you when no one else did. Like when you were quiet. Focused. I like that version of you. He turned his head slightly. Why didn't you say anything? I gave him a small laugh. Because guys like me don't walk up to guys like you and start talking. That's not how the world works. He nodded slowly. Maybe it should. The words hung in the air between us, heavy and full of meaning. My hands fidgeted in my lap. Why are you here? I asked. Really? He looked at me then, eyes locked on mine. Because I want to be. I don't know what this is yet, but I want to find out. And I want to know more about you. Not just the drawings. You. My breath shook as I exhaled. I don't know if I can handle this, I whispered. The way people would look at you. At me. At us. He reached over then, not to grab my hand, but to rest his fingers close to mine on the bench. Not touching. Just near. I get it, he said quietly. But I'm tired of being just one version of myself. Maybe I want to be the version you see, too. The silence after that said more than words could. The world had narrowed down to a single point, right here, right now. I wasn't sure what would happen next. But I knew the moment had cracked something open. Something dangerous. Something beautiful. Something I wasn't ready for, but couldn't walk away from anymore. The next few days unfolded like a secret I couldn't share. Every glance across the hallway, every accidental brush of arms in the crowded corridor, every lingering moment when our eyes met and then quickly looked away, it all sat just beneath the surface, quiet but loud inside my chest. Evan didn't say much at school. He didn't have to. There was something different in how he looked at me now, a kind of attention that wasn't there before. Noticing. Acknowledging. It made my stomach twist in a way that felt like both excitement and dread. I had never lived in this space before, somewhere between being seen and being invisible, between what I wanted and what I feared. And I was starting to realize that the real danger wasn't in Evan noticing me. It was in me starting to hope he wouldn't stop. By Friday, I felt like I was unraveling. Not in the dramatic, movie scene kind of way. Quietly. The kind of unraveling you feel in your bones when something is shifting inside you and you can't name it yet. I was jittery in class. My notes were a mess. I couldn't focus on anything. It was like my brain kept replaying every sentence he said during that walk by the field, every pause, every half-smile, every look. The more I thought about it, the more unreal it felt. Like I had imagined the whole thing. Maybe I had. Maybe I wanted it so badly that my mind made it up to give me something, anything, to hold on to. But then it happened again. I was heading toward the art room after school, needing a quiet space to breathe, when I heard someone call my name. Not loudly. Not with force. Just enough to catch my attention. I turned and saw him, standing near the lockers, his bag slung over one shoulder. Evan. The hallway was nearly empty. He stepped closer. "Got a minute?" he asked. I nodded, my mouth suddenly dry. He motioned with his head. "Come with me?" I followed him without a word, my heartbeat thudding with every step. He led me down the back hallway, away from the main exits, until we reached the stairwell near the old drama wing. It was quiet there, unused most days, the kind of place students passed through but never stayed in. He pushed open the door and let me go first. The door clicked shut behind us, muffling the world outside. I could hear my own breathing, shallow and fast. He stood a few feet away, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes on the floor for a moment before he looked up. "I keep thinking about that night," he said. "By the bleachers." I nodded. I had thought about nothing else. "I meant what I said," he continued. "I don't know where this goes. I'm not pretending I have it figured out. But I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. And I'm not saying that to scare you or pressure you or anything. I need you to know that." My chest tightened, every part of me tensing like I was afraid to breathe too loudly and break the moment. "I haven't told anyone," I said, voice barely above a whisper. "About you. About that night." He nodded. "I know." We stood in silence, the kind that stretches too long but says too much. I watched his face carefully, looking for cracks, for signs that this was a mistake. But all I saw was something honest. Something vulnerable. Something scared. And I realized in that moment that I wasn't the only one afraid. He was, too. Maybe even more than me. "I'm scared," I admitted, surprising even myself. "I'm scared of what people would say. What they'd think. About you. About me. About this." My hands were cold, fingers clenched into fists at my sides. He stepped forward then, slowly, deliberately. Close enough that I could smell the grass and sweat still clinging to him from practice. "You think I'm not scared?" he said softly. "I've spent years being who everyone wants me to be. The guy, the leader, the one who's got it all figured out. But I don't. I don't have any of it figured out. I just know that when I'm around you, I feel different. Like I'm not pretending. Like I don't have to." I closed my eyes for a second. His words hit something deep. Something I hadn't even realized I'd been hiding from myself. All my life, I'd been careful. Careful to stay out of the spotlight. Careful not to say too much. Careful not to look the wrong way at the wrong person. But Evan was pulling me into something where careful didn't exist. Where honesty lived, and it was messy and confusing and maybe even dangerous. But it was real. I opened my eyes. "If people find out, everything changes," I said. "For you especially." He nodded again. "I know. But maybe that's not the worst thing." There was a pause. A moment where we both breathed the same air, sharing something wordless between us. Then, slowly, he reached out. His hand hovered near mine, fingers barely touching. Not quite a grab, not yet. Just an invitation. And I don't know what pushed me to do it. Maybe it was the way he looked at me like I was safe. Or maybe it was the ache in my chest that needed to believe something this real could exist. But I reached back. Our fingers met, hesitant at first. Then settled. It wasn't a dramatic moment. It wasn't fireworks or swelling music. It was quiet and small. But in that silence, something loud happened inside me. A door opened. A truth arrived. A choice was made that we didn't kiss. We didn't speak. We just stood there, hand in hand, in that cold, dusty stairwell, like the world had stopped turning just long enough for us to catch our breath. He squeezed my hand once. I squeezed back. And then we let go. Quietly. Without needing to say why. We walked out of that stairwell side by side, still not touching, but carrying something between us that hadn't been there before. Something fragile. Something terrifying. Something neither of us fully understood, but couldn't deny anymore. And deep down, I knew, we were both about to be tested in ways we couldn't imagine. Because secrets like this don't stay hidden forever. And the world wasn't going to make this easy. The weekend passed like a blurry dream, equal parts calm and chaos inside my head. Outwardly, everything stayed the same. My parents asked how school was. I mumbled the usual nothing special response, ate dinner in silence, and locked myself in my room with my sketchbook and headphones. But inside I was spinning. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Evan's face in that stairwell. The way he looked at me, not just with curiosity, but with something deeper, something raw. That quiet moment when our hands found each other like they were meant to. That wordless understanding that whatever we were starting, it wasn't going to be easy, but it was real. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Not even for a second. I drew a lot that weekend. Not because I was trying to figure anything out, but because it was the only thing that kept me from exploding. Page after page filled up with lines that looked like confusion and longing and fear. I didn't draw Evan the way I had before, not from across the field, or frozen mid-throw. Now I drew the quiet version. The one who sat beside me in silence. The one who let himself be vulnerable for just a few seconds before the world came rushing back. That version of him, the one only I had seen, felt like a secret worth protecting. Monday came too fast. The moment I stepped into school, the air changed. The way people looked at me felt different. Maybe it was in my head. Maybe it was just the weight of what I was carrying. But I couldn't shake the feeling that eyes lingered longer, that whispers quieted when I passed. I tried to play it off, to move through my classes like nothing was different. But I was on edge. I knew something had shifted. And I didn't have to wait long to find out what it was after third period when I heard it. A voice too loud in the hallway, followed by laughter that didn't sound right. I turned the corner and stopped. There were two guys from the football team, Nate and Jordan, standing near Evan's locker, holding a crumpled piece of paper. My sketchbook page. My stomach dropped so hard it felt like the floor gave out under me. I didn't even have to see it to know. I'd ripped out a drawing late last night, tossed it in the trash because it felt too personal. Too close to everything I wasn't ready to admit. But I must have missed. Or someone had gone through the bin. Either way, there it was, in their hands, Evan's face on the page, my pencil strokes unmistakable. "Dude, this is you, right?" Jordan laughed, waving the page. "Someone's got a crush on our captain." Nate snorted, twisting his face in mock admiration. "Ah, look how dreamy you are, Ev." My breath caught. I searched the crowd for Evan, praying he wasn't there. But of course he was. He stood just a few lockers down, frozen, watching them. His face gave nothing away. Not anger. Not embarrassment. Just stillness. Then, without a word, he walked over. He didn't rush. He didn't shout. He just took the page from Jordan's hand, folded it slowly, and shoved it in his pocket. "You done?" he asked quietly. The tension in his voice was sharp, like a blade being drawn. Jordan tried to laugh it off. Hey, relax, man. It's just a joke. I said, are you done? Evan's voice dropped lower, dangerous now. Jordan raised his hands. Yeah, all right. Whatever. The hallway quieted. Everyone was watching. My heart pounded in my ears. I stood frozen at the corner, too scared to move, too humiliated to breathe. Evan turned his head slightly, and for a second, his eyes found mine. Just a flicker. Not long enough for anyone to notice, but I felt it. Like a lifeline thrown across a storm. Then he turned back around and walked away. I stayed in the bathroom for the next 2 periods, locked in the farthest stall, staring at the wall like it held some kind of answer. My thoughts raced in every direction. Someone knew. People were talking. The thing we had, whatever it was no longer ours alone. It was out. Cracked open. Vulnerable. And I hated it. Not just because I was scared, but because I wasn't ready to lose it yet. I wasn't ready to lose him. When the final bell rang, I walked out of school like a ghost. My steps were slow. My hands shoved deep into my pockets. I didn't even know where I was going until I ended up outside the gym, the place where all of this had started. The sun was low, casting long shadows over the pavement. I sat on the stairs, head in my hands, until I heard footsteps approach. Hey, he said. I didn't look up at first. I couldn't. My throat burned, like I'd been holding back tears for hours. Evan sat down beside me, close but not touching. We stayed quiet for a long time. Then I finally whispered, "How did they find it?" "I don't know," he replied. "But it doesn't matter now. People are going to say things. Make jokes. Act like they know us." I laughed bitterly. "They don't know anything." "Exactly." Silence again. Then, softly, he said, "You okay?" I shook my head. "No. Not really." He nodded like he understood more than I even said. "Me either." I turned to look at him then. Really look. His jaw was tight. His eyes darker than usual. But underneath it all, I saw something else. Something fierce. Something protective. "Why didn't you say anything?" I asked. "You could have denied it. Laughed it off. Thrown me under the bus." He took a long breath. "Because I'm not ashamed." That sentence hit me like a punch and a hug at the same time. I stared at him, stunned. He kept going. "I don't know what this is yet. I don't know what I'm doing. But I know it's real. I know you're real. And I'm not going to pretend you don't matter just because other people don't get it." Tears burned at the back of my eyes, but I blinked them away. He reached over slowly, resting his hand on mine again. Like he did in the stairwell. Like he meant it. And I didn't pull away. I let it stay there. Warm. Solid. Safe. "This is going to get harder," I whispered. "Yeah," he said. "But you don't have to do it alone." In that moment, I believed him. Even with the whispers, the stares, the weight of it all pressing in, I believed him. And maybe that was enough to keep going. Maybe that was enough to keep holding on. Because for the first time in my life, someone wasn't just looking at me. They were standing beside me. And that changed everything. The days that followed blurred into each other like smeared paint on a canvas. Different colors, same mess. After the sketch incident, the school didn't exactly explode with drama, but the atmosphere shifted. It was in the small things, the way people glanced sideways when I walked into class, the way whispers quieted when I passed through the hall, the way lockers slammed a little harder when I stood nearby. No one said anything to my face, but the silence around me had a voice of its own now, loud, sharp, accusing. And even though Evan had stood his ground, Even though he hadn't run or made excuses, I could see the weight on his shoulders starting to grow. He still nodded at me in the halls, still held my gaze a moment longer than necessary, still showed up late in the afternoons to walk with me when no one was watching. But the brightness in his eyes had dulled. The fire was still there. He was still him, but something around the edges had cracked. And it scared me to realize I wasn't the only one. Breaking point one afternoon, I was sitting in the back corner of the library, trying to sketch but failing miserably. The pencil in my hand moved, but nothing good came from it. Just stiff lines and smudges. Nothing felt right. I hadn't drawn anything meaningful since everything changed. Like the spark had gone out the moment the world looked too closely. Just when I was about to give up and shove the notebook into my bag, someone sat across from me. I didn't have to look up. I knew it was him. His presence had that same pull it always did, like gravity bending in my direction. Still, I lifted my head slowly, and there he was, Evan, hoodie pulled over his head, hands tucked into the sleeves. He looked tired. Not physically, but emotionally. Like every step he took through the day wore him down a little more. "Rough day?" I asked softly, setting the pencil down. He nodded. "The guys are acting different. Nothing huge. Just off." He looked down at his hands. "Coach pulled me aside. Asked if I was distracted lately. Said my focus seemed off. I told him I was fine. I didn't know what to say to that. A part of me wanted to tell him to walk away from me, to cut his losses before it got worse. But a bigger part of me, one that had grown braver in the last few weeks, refused to say it. Because I didn't want him to walk away. I wanted him here. Even if it made everything harder. "Are you?" I asked. "Distracted?" He met my eyes. Only in the best way. That made my chest ache. Not from pain, but from something warmer. Still, I knew what was coming. I could feel it building, pressure from his world pushing into ours, forcing him to choose sides, demanding he explain something he barely understood himself. "They're going to ask questions," I said. "They already are," he replied. "And I keep telling myself I don't care. That it doesn't matter what they think. But it's hard, you know? They've been my team since freshman year. They're like brothers. And now they're acting like strangers." I finished for him. He nodded slowly. "Yeah." We sat in silence for a while, the only sound between us the hum of the overhead lights and the occasional rustle of paper from another table. Then he spoke again, his voice lower this time. "Do you ever wish you could go back? To before all of this?" I looked down at my sketchbook. There were days I did. Days where invisibility felt safer. Simpler. But then I remembered the way his hand felt in mine. The way he'd looked at me when he said, "I'm not ashamed." And I shook my head. "No," I whispered. "Because before this, I didn't feel like I mattered to anyone." He swallowed hard. I could see the way his throat tensed. "You matter to me," he said, so quietly I almost missed it. That night, he walked me home. We didn't say much. The street was quiet, just the sound of our shoes and the wind brushing through the trees. When we reached my house, he hesitated at the gate. I stopped, turning to face him. The porch light lit up his face in fragments, sharp jaw, soft eyes, lips that looked like they had more to say but didn't know how. "You ever think about what this would be like if it weren't so complicated?" he asked. I gave a half smile. "All the time. I hate hiding," he said. "I hate feeling like I have to pick who I am depending on who's watching." His voice cracked a little, just enough for me to hear how real it was. "I don't want to hide you." The words settled in my chest like fire. I stepped closer, the gate between us now nothing but a thin metal boundary. I didn't touch him. I didn't have to. Then don't, I whispered. Not from me. He nodded, jaw clenched, like he was holding back a storm. Then he stepped back, not because he wanted to, but because the world we lived in still drew lines we hadn't figured out how to cross. He turned and walked away, and I stood there watching him go, heart too full to speak. The next day was worse. Someone had taken the drawing, the one from the locker room incident, and made copies. They were taped on random lockers, tucked into textbooks, left on cafeteria tables. Someone had written a caption across one of them, "Captain's got a boyfriend now," followed by laughing emojis. I found one stuffed in my own locker, folded in half like an invitation to humiliation. My hands shook as I held it. For a second, I just stood there, frozen in place, drowning in the noise inside my head. But then I felt a presence behind me. I turned. Evan. He looked at the paper in my hand, then up at the people around us who were pretending not to watch. And then he did something that knocked the air out of my lungs. He took the paper from me, unfolded it, stared at it, and then crumpled it in his fist. "That's enough," he said loud and clear. The hallway fell into a stunned silence. "If you've got something to say," he added, "say it to me. Not to him. Not behind his back. Not with your cowardly little jokes." He threw the paper into the nearest trash can and looked around, daring anyone to speak. No one did. After that, he walked with me all the way to class. Right there, in front of everyone. No hiding. No pretending. And I realized then that maybe we weren't waiting for the world to make room for us. Maybe we had to make it ourselves. Even if it hurt. Even if it meant losing things along the way. Because some things are worth the risk. And he was one of them. By the time the week ended, the story had spread far enough that even teachers started to look differently at me. Not with outright judgment, at least not all of them, but with something colder. Something cautious. Like they were reevaluating who I was based on nothing more than a few drawings and some locker room gossip. I sat in history class, second row from the back, pretending to take notes while my thoughts swirled like a storm I couldn't calm. Evan had barely spoken to me since that hallway confrontation. Not because he was avoiding me, I didn't think he was, but because something in him had gone quieter, more guarded. He still walked past me in the halls. Still gave me that soft, sideways glance that used to make my chest ache in a good way. But there was distance now. Like he was trying to figure something out that didn't have words yet. And it scared me more than anything. Because silence isn't always empty. Sometimes it's full of things no one wants to say. After class, I stepped into the art room just to get away from everything. That space had always been my escape. It still smelled like paint and old paper. The shelves leaned under the weight of brushes, jars, and unused supplies no one touched anymore. I sat at the same table near the window and opened my sketchbook, but my hands stayed still. I didn't want to draw him this time. I wanted to draw something that made sense. Something that felt like control. But everything fell out of my hands now. Just then, the door opened. I didn't look up. I didn't have to. I knew it was him. Evan didn't say anything at first. He just sat down in the chair across from me, quietly, like he was afraid of breaking something already cracked. I finally looked up, and there he was, messy hair, tired eyes, same nervous energy he always brought when he didn't know where to start. "Can we talk?" he asked, voice low. I nodded. He took a breath. "I've been trying to keep it together. On the field, at home, with everyone watching me. And I'm doing the best I can, but it's hard. Harder than I thought it would be." I didn't say anything. I wanted him to keep going. I needed to hear it. It's not just about them laughing, he continued. It's about me. The way I feel when I see you. When I think about you. I've never felt that before. Not with anyone. He looked down at the table like he couldn't meet my eyes. I thought maybe I could ignore it. That it was just a phase or some confused thing that would pass. But then I saw how much it mattered to you. And I realized it matters to me too. More than I wanted to admit. My throat tightened. I wanted to reach for him, to tell him he didn't need to explain, but I knew he needed to say it. I keep thinking about how simple everything was before this, he said. Before you. But I was lying to myself then. Pretending I was okay being the guy everyone expected. And now I'm scared. Because I don't want to lose everything. But I don't want to lose you either. He finally looked up, and in his eyes was something raw. Honest. I'm not ready to tell the whole world, he said. I'm not that brave. Not yet. But I don't want to keep pretending you don't exist. I don't want to go back to walking past you like you're a stranger. I nodded, my chest so full it hurt. Then don't, I whispered. He leaned forward, resting his elbows on the table, his fingers fidgeting. They asked me to come to that party tonight. You know, the one at Luke's house? I nodded again. Everyone knew about it. Half the school would be there. I want you to come with me, he said. Not like a huge announcement or anything. I don't want to keep hiding. Even if no one else knows what it means, I want to be around you. In the open. With no secrets. That invitation, so simple and terrifying, felt like standing on the edge of something I'd never imagined for myself. A world where we didn't have to be shadows. Where we could just exist, quietly, honestly. I didn't answer right away. I just stared at him, studying every part of his face, the way he was trying so hard to be strong, to be vulnerable at the same time. Finally I said, okay. I'll go. He smiled, soft and slow, like a sunrise breaking through thick clouds. Okay, he repeated. That night came faster than I thought it would. I stood in front of my closet, staring at clothes that all looked the same, none of which made me feel ready. But I went. I showed up. I stood outside the house with music thumping through the walls and lights flashing behind the windows, and I took a deep breath. When I stepped inside, the crowd swallowed me almost instantly. Laughter, drinks, dancing, it was all loud and chaotic. But then I saw him. Evan. Standing near the back wall, surrounded by a few teammates, none of them laughing this time. His eyes met mine, and for a second, the noise vanished. He walked over, not fast, not slow, just steady. The way he always did when he was sure of something. Hey, he said, his voice barely audible over the music. Hey, I replied. There was a pause. People were looking, though trying to pretend they weren't. Whispers started again. But Evan didn't flinch. He stood beside me, shoulder to shoulder. He didn't grab my hand. He didn't do anything dramatic. He just stood there, facing the crowd with me. And that was enough. That night, we didn't talk much. We didn't have to. We stayed close, moved through the room together, and didn't pretend anymore. And even though no one said it out loud, I could feel it. The shift. The beginning of something real. When it was over, we stood outside in the cool air. He leaned against the fence, staring up at the stars like they had answers he couldn't find. They're going to keep watching us, he said. They'll keep talking. I nodded. Yeah. He turned to me, his voice softer now. But I'm done pretending. If people want to know who I am, they'll find out. Little by little. But they'll know. My heart swelled. Not with fear. Not with doubt, but with something solid. Something steady. We didn't kiss. We didn't say anything poetic. We just stood there, two boys at the edge of something terrifying and beautiful, and for once, we weren't running from it. Not anymore. The days after the party weren't suddenly easier, but they were clearer. The stares didn't stop, and the whispers didn't fade, but something inside me had shifted. Something inside Evan had too. We didn't talk about it in big, dramatic speeches, and we didn't make declarations. But we stopped pretending we didn't know each other. We stopped keeping space between us. In the mornings, he'd nod at me across the courtyard as he walked in with his teammates. At lunch, he'd sometimes sit next to me even when his friends didn't. When we passed each other in the hall, we'd look, not too long, not to make a scene, but long enough to remind each other that none of this had been imagined. It was real, even if the world wasn't ready for it. And slowly, I stopped waiting for something bad to happen. I stopped flinching every time someone looked my way. It wasn't that I stopped being afraid, but the fear started to lose its grip. What surprised me most wasn't the silence. It was the support I never saw coming. One day, I walked into the art room to find a sticky note left on my table. Just 2 words, written in barely legible handwriting: "You're brave." No name, no explanation. But it shook me. Because it meant someone out there had seen what was happening and understood. Another day, one of the girls from my English class, Melanie, I think, walked past me in the hallway, then turned around and said, "I think it's cool, what you're doing." Then she kept walking like it was nothing. But it wasn't nothing. It was everything. Evan had his own battles. I saw them on his face. In the way his jaw would tighten after practice. In the way he'd sometimes show up at my door without texting first, just to sit in silence. One night, he showed up at almost 9, still in his workout clothes, hair damp with sweat. My parents were already in bed, the house quiet. I let him in, and we sat on the floor of my room, backs against the bed, knees drawn up, the air between us heavy but calm. "Coach had a talk with me today," he said, staring at the carpet. "Asked if everything was okay. Said some of the guys were concerned." He used air quotes, but I knew it hurt. I asked if my performance was the issue. He said no. Said I was playing better than ever. But still, they see the change. They just don't know what to do with it. I turned to him, the faint lamplight casting a soft glow across his face. "And you?" I asked. "Do you know what to do with it?" He gave a tired smile. "Not really. But I'm learning. With you, I feel like I can breathe. Everywhere else, I'm holding it in, pretending. But here?" He reached over, not for my hand this time, but for my sketchbook. "Here, I get to be someone real." He flipped through the pages slowly, carefully. Some were older drawings, pieces I had forgotten were even in there. Then he paused on a new one I had drawn after the party. It was just a silhouette of 2 boys standing close together under a streetlight, shadows stretching out behind them. You couldn't see their faces, but you could feel it, the weight of the world on their backs and the choice to stand beside each other anyway. He looked at the drawing for a long time. "You always draw like you're telling the truth," he whispered. I looked down, a little embarrassed. "It's the only way I know how to say what I mean." He set the book down and looked at me. "Then I want to start learning how to say it too. Maybe not in words, but in the way I show up. In the way I stop running." My chest ached, full of too much emotion to hold. So I didn't say anything. I just leaned my head against his shoulder, and he let me. That moment stayed with me through the weeks that followed. And slowly, the world adjusted. The teasing faded. The rumors lost their spark. People got tired of talking, and in the quiet that followed, we found room to breathe. Evan started inviting me to his games. Not publicly, not with an announcement, but he made it clear I was welcome. I'd sit in the second row, sketchpad in hand, pretending to focus on the game while secretly capturing the way his eyes lit up when he called plays. After the games, sometimes he'd jog over just to hand me a water bottle or bump his shoulder into mine like a thank you, casual and loaded with more than anyone else around us could see. One night after a big win, the whole team gathered at a local diner, as they always did. Evan texted me, "You should come." I hesitated, but something inside me said yes. I walked in, trying not to shrink under the noise and laughter. Heads turned, and I braced for it, but it didn't come. Evan was sitting at the end of the booth, and when he saw me, he didn't look away. He didn't act surprised. He just scooted over and nodded to the empty seat beside him. "Hey," he said when I sat down. "Glad you came." One of the guys across the table, Kyle maybe, smirked and said, "So this is the mystery artist, huh?" Evan just grinned. "Yeah. This is him." That was it. No jokes. No whispering. Just that moment. And I realized something important right then. Sometimes people will follow your lead if you're brave enough to take the first step. Evan had taken that step again and again, and because of that I could too. Weeks turned to months. The rumors stopped mattering. The fear started to dull. And the quiet, beautiful thing that had begun in a dim stairwell became something steady. Real. We didn't rush it. We didn't make it louder than it needed to be. We just kept choosing each other, one hallway, one look, one shared silence at a time. And every time he smiled at me across a crowded room, I smiled back. Because he wasn't just the team captain anymore. And I wasn't just the quiet boy who kept to himself. We were something else now. Something new. Something neither of us had words for. But it was ours. If you're listening to this right now, if you're watching and wondering if the risk is worth it, let me tell you this. It is. It won't be easy. People might talk. Some might walk away. But the right ones will stay. And in time, you'll learn that there is power in being seen. There's freedom in honesty. And there's beauty in choosing someone, even when the world says don't. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt invisible or afraid to be real, know this, you're not alone. And you never were. If you're still hiding, that's okay. Take your time. But when you're ready to step into the light, someone will be there to meet you. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you felt this. Your story matters. And someone out there needs to hear it. If this story touched your heart, don't leave without showing your support. Hit the like button to help more people discover this beautiful journey. Subscribe for more faceless emotional stories about love, identity, and courage. And turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new upload. Speech Balloon, got thoughts or a story of your own? Share it in the comments. We read everyone. Movie camera helps someone feel seen. Share this video with a friend who needs it.